Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. My name is Meredith Plummer, and I am the Director of Lifespan Faith Development. Located on the ancestral lands of the Adena, Hopewell, Miami, and Shawnee people, our urban community welcomes all with love, supports learning and spiritual growth, serves our wider community, works for justice, equity, and inclusion, and we're glad that you're here this morning. At the end of the service, there will be announcements of upcoming events. If you'd like to learn more about these events, our community, or any of our programs, please contact us at member-care@firstuu.com. We begin our service by lighting our chalice, the chosen symbol of our faith, with these words by Stephen Schick, entitled, "Creating Fire." Is the fire going out? Not in your belly, for you are still alive, but in your soul, that place where dreams fuel commitment, where longings shape action, where meaning flames purpose, where passion ignites and rekindles your life fire. If your soul smolders, dream on till you flame like a chalice of hope. Please join in singing First Church Vision Song. The words will appear on the screen. Have you ever heard that Unitarian Universalism is a living tradition? Do you know what that means? It doesn't mean that we live our UU values every day, though I do hope you do that. But what it actually means is that it's a tradition that changes. It is a faith tradition that is shaped by the people who practice it. Today's story is one that I've told before. If you've been here for more than a year, you've likely heard it. And you will likely hear it again sometime in the future. But today, I want you to listen to today's story with the understanding that Unitarian Universalism is a living tradition. And adults, I want you to listen to the rest of today's service with that same mindset.
A Lamp in Every Corner by Janine K. Grossmeyer. Adapted. Many years ago, in the land of Transylvanian, there was a small town nestled in a mountain valley, surrounded by quiet streams and shady forests. The people of the village were of the Unitarian religion, and they wanted a church of their own, a church on a hillside, looking down upon the village as a mother looks down upon her sleeping child. And so, over many weeks, the entire town labored. The stonemasons hammered sharp chisels to cut great blocks of stone for the church exterior. The glaziers made tiny glass panes for the tiny windows. The foresters sawed tall trees into enormous beams for the ceiling. The carpenters carved a pair of beautiful, ornate doors. Merchants bought a bell from a faraway city and hoisted it with a heave and a hoe to the top of the church tower. The weavers wove fine cloth for the altar, embroidered with flowers and lace, and the smiths hammered black iron into tall lampstands. Finally, the building was complete and the church could be painted. So one sunny summer day, the entire town, young and old, gathered to paint the new church. They painted the outside the color of the sun, and they adorned the inside with all the splendors of nature. Flowers, trees, and animals were painted all around the windows, doors, and molding. And at the end of the day, when it was finished, when their church was finally done, all the people of the village stood back to admire it, and then to sing a song of happiness and praise. The village had a church now, a church set on the hillside, looking down upon the village as a mother looks down upon her sleeping child. "We will eat now," announced an elder of the village. Everyone nodded in agreement. Everyone was hungry after their long day's work. The elder continued, "And later tonight we will come back to worship." So the people of the village went down the hillside to their homes and their suppers. All except one little girl named Zora and her father, who stayed behind. They had brought their own bread and cheese. They ate their food slowly, sitting on the grass on the hillside and admiring their new church with its strong stone walls, its tall tower, and its magnificent bell. "Oh, look, Father," exclaimed Zora. "Look how pretty our church is." "Yes, it certainly is," replied her father, looking around and nodding with pride. "Yes, it is." Then Zora's face was suddenly stricken with concern. "But Father, it's just occurred to me it's not finished." "Whatever do you mean, Zora?" asked her father. "There are tall iron stands all around the church, but there are no lamps. The church will be dark when the people come back." Zora's father chuckled. "Oh, no, little one. Don't fret. The light of the church comes from its people. You shall see." As the sun set behind the high mountains, Zora and her father rang the church bell to call the village to worship. And it was then, in the growing darkness, that Zora saw tiny points of light come from many directions and move steadily up the hill in a stream. "Each family is entrusted with a lamp, little one," her father explained. "Each family lights its own way here." "Where is our family's lamp?" inquired Zora. "Your mother is carrying it," replied her father. "She will be here soon." And so Zora's mother arrived, bearing the burning lamp in her hand. Zora placed their lamp upon their family's lampstand, just as all the other families were doing the same. Soon, the church was ablaze with light in every corner, for all the people of the village had gathered to worship. All through the worship, Zora watched the lights flicker and glow. She watched her family's lamp most of all. And when the service was over, Zora took the lamp from their family's lampstand so that her mother and father could carry it home, its flame lighting their way. As Zora prepared for bed that night, she thought about her family's lamp and its light. "Mother," she began, "Father said the light of the church comes from its people." "Yes, Zora," replied her mother, "but also the people take the light from the church, and we have that light every day." "Yes, indeed," replied her mother. "And when you are not in church, even when the lamp is not lit, we carry that light of truth in our mind and the flame of love in our hearts to show us the right way to be. The light of truth and love will never go out." "Never?" asked Zora. "Never," said her mother. "And this lamp will last for many, many years. And when you are grown, we will give it to you. And when your children are grown, you will give the lamp to them. And all of you will carry it back and forth to the church every time." Confused, Zora responded, "But there's only one lamp." "So, make another and let the light grow. And someday, tell your children to make more lamps too. Now, good night." At that, Zora's mother kissed her once on this cheek, once on that cheek, and once on the forehead. Zora closed her eyes and drifted into dreams while her mother looked down upon her sleeping child. The years passed. Zora grew. The lamp came into her care. She kept it polished and clean. And when the bell rang out across the valley to call the people to worship, she carried the lamp back and forth to the church on the hillside, the flame always lighting her way. And when the time came, she made more lamps and gave them to her children, who made more lamps and gave them to their children. And so it went on through the years, even until today. And always, the light of truth and the flame of love from the Unitarian Church on the hillside continue to grow and show them and us the way.
The Common Good by Kathleen McTeague. We breathe the common wind of the earth, no matter where we live, who we love, what language we speak. We drink the common water of the earth, no matter the color of our skin, how long we live, the coverings we drape on our forms. We follow the common paths of the earth, no matter our beliefs, how far we move from home, the gold we carry or its lack. May we live from these truths, our hearts open to the holiness all around us, our hands turned always toward the common good.
Everybody, can you hear me okay? Awesome. Hi, I'm Rebecca Schaefer. I'm a member of your Board of Trustees, and today it's my privilege to get to do our monthly update to the congregation, the board moment. And I was driving here this morning with my family, which still feels weird to say because it feels like we've been in this like 2-year limbo. And I was like, you know, what do I want to say to people as a board update? And I think like today I'm filled with this incredibly exhilarating combination of like hope and enthusiasm because, you know, cases are down. We took our 18-month-old to have a play date with another baby yesterday, and then he's taking another one this afternoon, which was like, when I got pregnant, you know, I was like visualizing spending time with other babies, and then, you know, everything got crazy. But I also still have like this huge, like, and I know I'm like many of you here, where it's like 2 years of quasi-connection, right? Like, I gave birth in a mask, which was not what I envisioned. You know, they're like, have a birth plan. I'm like, this was not in my birth plan. You know, I gave birth in a mask. Philip was in a mask. We were alone. Nobody could come see us. So I still have that sorrow, and I know a lot of you guys have sorrow for whatever you went through in that time. And I still have a lot of rage, too. You know, there's a lot of rage in there. Like, Philip's mom was going through chemo, and we were up there for Christmas, and there were some family members who didn't want to wear a mask, and then we were fighting about it. And it was like, how is this Christmas where we're worried about people making it through chemo and we have a new baby and we're fighting about this? So I have this rage, and I know a lot of you have that rage too. And I know that the board probably hasn't done everything that everybody hoped that it would do. And we feel that, but also at the same time, we've gone through all those things that you guys have each gone through, and we've all gone through it in a lot of ways in our silos, and that's incredibly terrible. But I feel like this is a really incredible pivoting moment for First Church, for my personal life, and for the world. Because I did go on that play date yesterday. We drove up to Lima, Ohio to see some friends from college, and our boys played together, and it was just awesome. This afternoon, we're going to go out to Milford and play with another little boy who Philip used to teach with the mom. And, you know, that's what I've been hungry for a very long time. And I think First Church is starting to get to that place, too. So something that the board has taken upon themselves and is working on this year is assisting with the stewardship campaign. And the reason that we wanted to do that is in part because our presence probably hasn't been felt as robustly as we would have hoped. We have been meeting, we have been working, but we're apart just like you guys are, right? So we wanted to get involved in the pledge drive, and we asked ourselves, like, what are we really going for here? Like, yes, it's a financial exercise, right? And you'll hear more about that in the pledge launch in a couple of weeks. But more than that, it's an opportunity for us to reconnect, really, to reach back out to each other and check in and figure out what's gone on in those years and where we want to move forward. So we've also had those congregational conversations over Zoom. I think Philip and I were able to participate briefly with a kid running in and out of the camera, and we saw a lot of you there as well, just asking, like, who do we want to be moving forward? What do we want to do, right? Now that we feel this sense of opportunity in the air, there's more to life than play dates, and what else do we want to do, right? So we've been asking those questions and having those conversations, and I believe there's an effort underway. You got an email from Reverend Connie to further that conversation on the art wall out there if you have the opportunity to come in, or reach out and send an email to the board if you can't. But as part of that, we recruited 20 people who are going to reach out and have a conversation as part of this pledge drive. And this is not, I would like you to have an open mind towards this when you get that phone call or that email to try to set that conversation up. This person is legitimately seeking your feedback on what your past experience over the last couple of years has been with the church and what your hopes are for the future. So please see that phone call as a legitimate reach out from the board for your input, not a soft sell. So I'm excited about, we're calling it in-person canvassing. I believe there was a tradition in this church before my time where people would meet with a canvasser every year and have that conversation. And while it may not be in person, it may be over the phone, we're hoping to bring that sense of connection back and bring everybody kind of back into the fold moving forward. Because this is, even though I know we all have that like rock in our gut that I described that's different for each of us of that rage component, that sorrow component, like this is an exciting time, right? This is an exciting time. This is a positive time, and we're going to have to kind of like dig deep as a group and move forward into that exciting time. So that's all I got to say. Now I'm gonna run downstairs and see how Elliot's doing with his truck. I can't tell you how much it's meant. Sorry, I'm going long, but I gotta say this. I can't tell you how much it has meant to me, a person who gave birth in a mask, unable to leave the room to get anything. Like, you weren't allowed, you booked into it was like the Hotel California. You booked in, they shut the door, and you were done. To be able to come back here with my kid and let him run around and, look at the wooden baby heads, even though some days those are the only other babies here for him, and go downstairs and play. That's just meant so much, and I'm looking forward to the future. So thanks.
Each month, we designate our Sunday Plate collection to benefit a special cause or local social justice organization. This month, our beneficiary is the Interfaith Hospitality Network of Greater Cincinnati, IHN. If you'd like to support the work of IHN, you may text GIVE to 513-717-7373. Visit our website at www.firstuu.com if you have access to our Breeze member system by clicking Give Now, or you may mail a check payable to First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati, 536 Linton Street, Cincinnati, Ohio, 45219. Be sure to write IHN in the memo line. If this is your first time visiting us, we invite you to let the virtual offering plate pass you by. Your presence is your gift to us. Our offering will be gratefully received. Thank you.
Come unto me. with us.
By no means are we Unitarian Universalists perfect. We often fail as much as we succeed. Yet, even when we have broken our vows 1,000 times, we return to this essential work of justice and liberation for all. We do the work best when we remember what church is and what it is not. Church is not a place to hide. It is not the place to get away from the world. It is not a place where we get to pretend that the lives we live and our particular situations are not terribly complex, often confusing, and sometimes depressing. Church is the place where we stand with one another, look at the world in the eye, attempt to see clearly, and gather strength to face what we see with courage and, yes, with joy. This reading is from Reverend Rosemary Bray McNatt's essay, Our Faith.
Our Universalist Our Universalist ancestors believed that a powerful, radical love awaited them at death. A love so powerful as to be able to cleanse them of even their most vile sins. A love so radical as to be freely available to all. In the days when John Murray ran aground on a sandbar on the coast of New Jersey 251 years ago, that was a wild and heretical theology, this stuff of universal salvation. Over the ensuing years, a theology that holds that all people will ultimately be saved, a theology that rejects the eternal damnation of hell in favor of a reconciliation with a greater love. That theology isn't so wild anymore. It's barely even heretical in some corners. And yet, since Thomas Potter convinced John Murray to preach universalism in his little chapel, our faith has struggled with the question of what universalism calls us to in this life, before we die, right here. After all, if we're all going to be saved anyway, why bother doing anything in this life? Why even bother being good? Through the generations, our Universalist ancestors have come up with pretty decent responses to these questions. And today, I want to call us to an answer that Clarence Skinner gave us some 80 years ago. Now, I don't always agree with Clarence Skinner, 20th century Universalist theology. For starters, his history of embracing eugenics is more than a little problematic. But in particular, theologically, I think he led us astray by claiming that big U universalism was little u universal, that we uniquely had a religion for all people and should strive to make it so. That's modernist colonizer talk right there, that little u universal religion stuff. It asks us to point to the existence of a truth that is equally valid for all people. To claim that truth as a theology of white Europeans and Americans, I don't believe that such a truth exists, much less that white folks would hold it. So I don't do little u universal religion. But when Skinner asked the question, what in this life, he got to some things I find worthy of holding up. Universalism, he insisted, calls on us to fight the perpetuation of racism. In his 1945 work, A Religion for Greatness, he wrote that racism is based on selfishness, superstition, and distortion. Quote, "If we see life steadily and see it whole," he wrote, "we can appreciate all the parts. The part becomes misunderstood only when we see it without relationships, as an end in itself. Each race, each culture, each difference in humanity," he wrote, "has its own genius, and each may contribute to a life that is rounded, divine, and complete." I believe that it is our call to once again make our faith a radical prophetic challenge to the way things are. It is time to reclaim our place as the wild heretics, pushing society forward, pushing theology forward, pushing humanity forward. It is time to rethink the powerful love our ancestors believed awaited them when they died as a powerful love available to us in the present, while we live. I believe it's time to rethink our theology of universal salvation as a theology of universal liberation, right here. I believe it's time for universalists to claim the radical, powerful love that our ancestors once attributed to God as a possibility for humanity. Not as an automatic of humanity. We all know that real evil exists in our world, that systems created by humans perpetuate evil daily, but as a possibility, which makes our call as universalists making it happen. In 1915, 10 years into his ministry, and 2 decades before he became a professor at Tufts, Clarence Skinner published The Social Implications of Universalism. Here's some of the non-problematic part of what he wrote. Universalism, he wrote, was born out of the new humanity. It is the gospel of the new heaven and the new earth. It throbs with hope. It was part of the great world movement to reinterpret life in terms of a regenerated, buoyant, self-assertive human nature. Universalism believes in the world and in its potential goodness. It repudiates the gloomy and disastrous outlook of the old anti-social theology. Clarence Skinner continues, "Only those theologies which frankly and persistently align themselves with the world and openly champion its potential goodness can logically enter the great Reformation of the 20th century. They alone believe that salvation comes in, by, and through a saved world. This is social salvation. All others believe that salvation comes by escaping from a world which is inherently unsavable. That," he writes, "is the individual antisocial medieval faith." Goethe once said that the ideal is not an escape from reality, but a completion of it. The universalist conception of religion is not that of an escape from reality, but that of the harmonious and spiritual development of all the elements of real life. Clarence Skinner. How do we persistently align ourselves with the world? How do we openly champion the potential goodness in our midst? What is our call? I believe it is the collective liberation of all of humanity. And not just the spiritual liberation of all of humanity, but the physical and emotional liberation of humanity as well, because these things cannot be separated. As long as we are not naming the white supremacy culture in our midst and openly, explicitly, and constantly working to dismantle it, we are failing in our call to champion the goodness of humanity. As long as listening to the voices of those who have experienced marginalization and naming the ways in which racism is systematized in our society are somehow controversial things to do, we are failing in our call to champion the goodness of humanity. As long as, in the words of my colleague in ministry, Aisha Hauser, violent extractive capitalist systems are allowed to make policy, to block action on climate change, to enact colonialist foreign policies, to abrogate the bodily autonomy of people with uteruses, to let this deadly virus run rampant in communities of color and schools because we insist that certain adult bodies are needed to show up for work, we are failing in our call to champion the goodness of humanity. These evils exist because someone is making money off of them. And their money is power in a society that falls short of the radical love that is possible in our world. As long as any of our siblings are locked behind bars, as long as their bodies are fuel for the fire of our prison industrial system, as long as we insist that punishment by dehumanization is a necessary response to breaking laws, as long as our nation's constitution allows a loophole in our abolition of slavery specifically for incarcerated people, we are failing in our call to champion the goodness of humanity. Let's make no mistake. The systems of injustice that I'm talking about today, these systems are using the very beings, the bodies and the spirits of Black people, of Indigenous people, people of color, of poor people, of disabled people, of queer people, of women and transgender people as fuel for the creation of wealth for a very, very small number of people. Let me repeat that. The very bodies of those who are marginalized in so many ways around the world are being used as fuel. Our systems dehumanize people and then turn them into commodities to be used. And as surely as the fires of hell that John Murray rejected burned, human systems of evil burn. And so it is our call as Universalists to reject that fire consuming our siblings. It is our call as Universalists to amplify the radical, powerful love that we know humanity is capable of. It is our call as Universalists to work for the liberation of all of humanity, for the spiritual emancipation that Clarence Skinner wrote of in 1915, as well as for the physical emancipation so desperately needed in 2021. Light the fuse, Skinner wrote, and the fire will reach the bomb. It is time, my friends, to set off a love bomb on our world. It is time to act like we are worthy of the God of John Murray and Hosea Ballou, the God of Olympia Brown and Joseph Jordan, the God of Gloucester Dalton and Amy Scott. Like we are worthy to call ourselves inheritors of a faith in which all are saved, in which all are free, in which all are loved. It is time for us to practice radical, powerful, life-saving love, liberation, and salvation, right here, right now, over and over again. May it be so.
Unitarian Universalism is faith in people hope for tomorrow's child, confidence in continuity that spans all time. It looks not to a heaven, a perfect heaven, but toward a good earth. It is respectful of the past, but not limited to it. It is trust in growing and conspiracy with change. It is a spiritual responsibility for a moral tomorrow.
We close the worship portion of our gathering by extinguishing our chalice and reading together the words that appear on your screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Hi, I'm Denise. I'm here to give you the Heart and Hand auction report. It was a great success, and the next time you see these people, be sure to give them a high five. Laurie Frank, Molly Gillespie, Linda Miltner, and Laura Hobbs. So the 40th annual Heart and Hand auction was a great success. There were over 200 offerings, and 90 people donated items, and as well as friends, members, and businesses. Nearly 100 people took part in the bidding, and preliminary numbers indicate we made over $11,000 for the capital budget. Cash donations are still coming in and are welcome, so that amount may grow. You should now have received an email from the auction website, so it'd be 32 auctions, showing that you purchased what you purchased and how much you owe. And if you donated something, you would have received an email from Laurie Frank via Breeze indicating who purchased your item and how to get in touch with them. Many thanks to all those who donated, bid, and gave support to the auction team. Who knew that the 40th year of the auction would be so much fun? Thanks again.